Good evening, Danvers. Welcome to the Topics of the Town News, December 22nd, just before Christmas. We had to reschedule our show because of the snowstorm last week. And so this is really the December 17th show, but today I have with me John Zavaglia.
John, what? What'd you call me?
John Zavaglia.
Okay.
John Toomey is currently unavailable and due to being cautious, and we want to appreciate him being available to us, but he's there in spirit. Our voices will change the world. That's the topic of the town this week. And if we can show the Einstein quote, I really love this quote because it really represents what we're talking about here. So, David, if we can show Mr. Albert Einstein, and he had a very tremendous quote. I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots, which is really what's happening in our world today because of all the restrictions and all the confinements of our personnel in our town and in our state. So we are embarking into a new era of our social engineering and development that is being taken over by electronic media and the television medium that we're so accustomed to watching. For our show, transparency and independent reporting is our motto. The Topics of the Town News reporting is by Danvers reporters for Danvers residents. We always report only the truth, sometimes with our opinion included, which is only natural. Now we get into our show, and what I wanted to do, John, is we had a selectmen's meeting last Tuesday, and it was on a conference call as well. They were afraid of being, in front of the public. So we went through a few items on there, and one of the items that struck me very, very well, because I'm always concerned about the budgets. And the budget, in this case, there was a finance report that was given by the town manager. And you know what? Even with all this confinement and all of these restrictions that we have had, the town hasn't lost a beat. It seems like the town is operating on the existing budget that we approved at town meeting. John, you have anything to say about that?
Well, I'm trying to figure how, it was on a conference call, and I'm sure they gave the reason why, but you haven't. Would it be because of the growing COVID crisis? Or what? Because you just left it up in the air that they were afraid to see the public. But isn't the public allowed by law to zoom in on them if they want to?
Not really. They only can do it by email now, it looks like. So there are restrictions that they have imposed recently, and into gatherings of I think it's less than 25 people, and I think it's 10 now. And you can't really. I went into the town hall one day. This was about 2-3 weeks ago, and basically it was vacant. Everybody was locked up in their offices. I walked into the finance director's office, and boy, was that a surprise. But the thing is that they are accessible. The only thing is that they force you into going into a conference call or telephone appointment that you have to make to see them.
I don't blame them. Most of our doctors and nurse practitioners are doing that now. So what's the difference?
That's because of the restrictions that we have been imposed on.
And I'm all for it. Someone like me with a lower autoimmune system because of my recent kidney transplant, hey, you're preaching to the choir here for all these restrictions, okay?
Well, you know my feeling about it, and I have always been resistant to all of these restrictions because all these restrictions do is control us.
I got a question. I got a question. All these people like in Washington who didn't want to wear a mask, all these GOP lawmakers, how come they're standing in line for the vaccine? These
No,
maskless
there's a
legislators.
very interesting development that has happened with all these vaccines that are being available is all the legislators in Washington, D.C. are first in line. What the heck
Especially the
is going on?
especially the maskless GOP.
It's all of them. It's not just one group. They're all in line. So let's continue. The one thing that I wanted to show on here is that there are turkeys in our town government as well. So, David, if you can just show it, the turkey, that will be very representative of what's going on in our town hall. But being
How could they do it different? How could they do it different, Mark?
I don't care how they do it differently. They need to resist the confinement of our population. We have instituted restrictions on our families, on our neighbors, on our friends and relatives, and they are in control, and they want to keep that control. So
I got a question for.
Go ahead.
Since you're the one who sort of knows all. Dr. Fauci was on the other day, and Baker and everything else, and they said it was all consistent. And 7 days after Thanksgiving is when the rates skyrocketed. Okay, now these people had practiced what they're supposed to practice with social distance. You wouldn't have that. And what Town Hall and Baker are doing, which you are still totally against, is they're trying to lessen the impact of the virus. But no, they're a turkey according to you, and I don't get it.
They are gobble, gobble, gobble turkeys. The problem is that these restrictions are being imposed, but also in regard to the testing that's happening, they are expanding the testing. No wonder they're going to find more people with the virus.
Which is all the better. Now you can see who the super spreader is and take care of it accordingly. You know, like Trump was a super spreader.
Don't we have our own personal responsibility? Do we take care of our own health? Now, we want Big Brother to go and take care of our health as well, right? So
because we're not doing it ourselves.
Because
we're not
we should
doing it
be
ourselves.
That's the problem. The problem is,
No, it's
is
not.
that, well, let's move on. Let's move on because we're never going to agree on this one.
You don't have a leg to stand on in all this, but you're making like you do.
My legs are holding up real straight. Now, the next story that I have here is that Mass lawmakers confirm agreement on police reform bill. Well, the reform bill that was passed by the legislature was basically returned by the governor because there were issues in there that should not have been included. And they have just revised that, as a matter of fact, today, that the bill is going to be changed and it has been voted in place. I am still looking for the facts of what kind of an effect this thing is going to have. It was 96 pages of stuff in there that the only thing that they wanted to do is control the police. And this has been an issue right along. Now, our police department in Danvers has been, confirmed that they have been trained and they have a resolution that they will take care of us. And the thing is, as far as I know, there have been no infractions in our police department.
You know why? The
Why?
police have a hard, the police have a hard enough job, okay? I
Right?
know. My brother-in-law is a retired police officer in Danvers. Plus, I know all the guys in Salem. But the bottom line is, the police in the past were judge, jury, and executioner. Now, help me out here. I thought with this new bill, it goes to an internal affairs first, and then goes to this board they want to do. Am I right or wrong, or I missed
Correct.
something?
That's
Okay.
how it's supposed to work.
Okay, because what's happening is until you had the body cams and people taking videos, no one ever believed civilians when it came down to them versus the police officers. Then all of a sudden, with videos and police cams, now you're seeing that as difficult as the cop's job is, there's a few rotten apples in the police department that don't make the rest of the guys who are real and women who are real excellent police officers. They kind of like almost like bring them down a little, all right, with the body cam stuff. So what this bill does, in my opinion, was okay. Internal affairs, you're first. We're like the board of not board of appeals. We're like the court appeals court where we see that you did everything all right. We're like that second opinion medically. That's how I see it. If it's different or I'm wrong, tell me. But this something like this is needed based on what you've been seeing, especially the last few years, where you're going, are you kidding me? They did that to that person and then lied about it?
Well, then what you have to consider is that this has not happened in Danvers. And the thing is that the state has gone into a reactionary mode. And they say that the bill calls for a new independent agency on police certification. It does not make substantial changes to qualified immunity, which protects officers from liability. So I hope that the new version of the bill comes out soon, and we'll take a look at that, limitations of what they have imposed. Because what this is, again, this is control of our population, whether they're in blue or they're in civilian clothes. It doesn't matter.
Aren't they using this board as an example what they do in New York City, where there's like a civilian review board?
That's what this
Isn't
is.
that the
Yeah.
same? But I thought there was going to be police officers on this board. Am I wrong there?
Well, they have boards set up. They have the Latino certification board, the training board, the Black Caucus board. They have all kinds of boards that are going to be looking at the policemen. And the problem is when are we going to let them do their job? And especially in Danvers, concentrating on our own police department, we have certified our police officers over the many years that I know of, that they have gone through a certification process even before they thought of this bill. So, moving on, we're going to look into this bill a little further because I want to get the police officers, one of them at least, to come on and sort of give us their impression of what this bill is going to confine them to.
I would get a retired police officer because they're not under like department restriction on what they can say and not say.
That's exactly what I'm thinking too, John. And I will, in January, will invite someone that's going to be instrumental in explaining what effects this is going to have.
Well, I hope it's my brother-in-law Hagan because he'd be excellent, I think. And I haven't talked to Mike. Wait, let me put it this way. Nowadays, you can't say, well, I never talked to Mark or I never talked to Mike because you can communicate via other things other than talking. I have not communicated in any form, indirectly or directly, with Mike Hagan about this. But when I bump into him, I'm going to mention that to him, that I think if he isn't already committed, and if not Mike Hagan, why not two officers retire?
There you go. I'm willing to do that. and I forgot to shut my phone off. There you go. Now I shut
You
it off.
mean you mean someone called you who cares about you?
Yes, someone cares. I don't know who, but it does. The
But can
next,
I just read one thing off about this bill? It names the bill number and it says an act relative to justice, equity, and accountability in law enforcement in the Commonwealth. I think it is all about accountability because you got 90 minimum 95% to 98% who are tremendous police officers, but you got those 2% of bad apples that you
that's
got to
what
get,
that's
take
all it's
care of.
about. That's all it's about. All right. Next item on here is just to continue on the selectmen's board. Danvers Danvers gets free liquor licenses and classification relief. Danvers residents get a 3.36% tax increase. So that was the story we talked about last week, 2 weeks ago. But after looking at that, the day after that article came out and the selectmen have their meeting, Danvers companies get $133 million in federal PPP loans. So the thing is that we are doing what we can as a town for our restaurants, basically. That's what it's about. Danvers companies in Danvers received 133 million in loan approvals under the federal Paycheck Protection Program, according to data released Tuesday by Small Business Administration. The loans went to 735 companies, range from $1,058 to $8.1 million. Applicants said the loans could help them protect 10,779 jobs in Danvers. But the thing is, what you have to look at is deeper into this. The PPP loans are part of the CARES Act. It's all related to COVID-19 because our government has basically shut us down and put us back in our living rooms on the couch. In Danvers, the highest loans went to Copyright Clearing Center, Samaria Systems, Kelly Automotive Group, Mortgage Networks, St. John's Preparatory School, International Cars Limited, Inside Service Group, Boston Pie, the Luigi's, and Construction Management and Builders. Statewide, there were nearly 118,000 loans totaling $14.27 billion in the loan applications. The companies that received the loans said they would help protect 1.17 million jobs in Massachusetts. So what I'm finding out recently is that these loans are going to be forgiven. So we're doing what we can as a town through the liquor licenses and provisions for opening the restaurants. But there are bigger things that are happening in the background. And the money that we pay in taxes, whether it's state, federal, or town, are going to support the businesses. But you have to ask yourself the question, why are these businesses controlled and stopped from operating? They're putting a lot of businesses out of business, basically. So, John, you got anything on that?
Oh yes, I have plenty on this one.
All right.
First of all, if you look at like Tom Brady, worth millions of dollars, his group, the TB12 group,
Yeah.
he's got it insulated where he's not responsible personally for anything, the way it's written up. All these companies, it's probably been written up how the heads of them are like insulated. Now here's my big question. You have St. John's Prep here, okay?
Yep.
Now we know St. John's Prep has a lot of money in endowments and stuff, okay? And here's my other question. So what happened to the Court of the Constitution separation of church and state. Is it written in such a way that there is no separation of church and state with St. John's Prep? That somehow it's written that they're not considered a religious church group? Here's my other question. If they're getting government loans, okay, St. John's Prep, then how come the Board of Selectmen, for the Select Board now, for years to try to get the Prep to kind of contribute a little more money towards the tax base?
Right.
So you can't, if they got this money somehow through legal means that they're not considered church and state, then they should be able to pay the whole taxes. You got government loans at one hand, you should be able to pay taxes, not in lieu of, taxes on the other.
There you
But
go.
somehow they're not.
Well, they're not. And the only thing that I can say about that is that the private schools are all open. They're in-person schools. So what is the difference between our Danvers school system, St. John's Prep, St. Mary's? They're all open. The problem is that our teachers union is controlling the situation, and they don't want to go to work. And this is, again, an incident where the residents of this town should take it upon themselves to put in escrow half of their tax return that they send into the town and wait until the schools get open. Right now, our schools are being punished and their kids are not getting an education, John. And the problem is that
Yes, they are. They're getting it through the remote
Yeah.
learning. And
yeah,
don't some still go to school? Are they in the
Oh.
hybrid or not?
only the special needs have been allowed to go back to class, and they are few and far in between. The problem is when you talk to parents of students, they are not learning anything. They may be going through the motions, but it's a living room exercise on television, basically. So what we're doing is we're training our population to become couch potatoes and become vegetables at home. So now I have a good story, and tax classification, I don't think we're going to go into it. But
We already did.
David, if you can throw up the Christmas tree, I was very concerned that the town was going to ban the Christmas tree in the square. And the thing is that they have done an excellent job. The DPW, I don't care, I've always beat up on the DPW, but they have done a beautiful job on the tree. And I've driven by the location, and it is tremendous. It's probably better looking than any other year in the past. So thank you, DPW. John?
Wow. That's,
Wow.
no, I can't believe I'm agreeing with you, but they did a great job of this tree. That is a tremendous shot.
This is from DCAT took that shot when they had the tree lighting.
Kudos to DCAT, because that just captures it all. I mean, it really you see the businesses in the background, the street lights, the star is, I would assume, a star on top. And do I see a little snow there too on the left, or is that?
I don't know. I think that was before the snowstorm.
But that's a great shot. I mean, that's like the gold standard right there of Christmas tree shots.
Well, you know what I'm going to say, and then I don't usually say this, but I'd like to thank David Lane for making sure that this was done properly. and the tree is very well decorated, and it looks tremendous. So thank you.
Wait a minute. On David Lane, he was on the show a few years ago. We had a great 1-hour interview. We had kids in middle school and high school helping us, and every kid to a person came up to me after David Lane's interview, and they said they learned more about roads, sidewalks, and things like that than they ever would. Okay, so I thought, we had the library director in there. We had Peter Morandi, the health guy. We had David Lane, and David Lane. You learn more about the way things are done with snow removal, everything anything to do with the DPW. And these kids were like very, very impressed by what they learned from David. So don't, before you stop bashing Dave in your own little subtle, non-subtle way, just remember that was a great interview we had with him about 4 or 5 years ago.
This is unlike me, John. So David, thank you very much.
So give credit where credit's due.
I did.
I'm talking about in the past when he at least he came on. Remember, for the longest time we couldn't get anyone from town hall to come on, and then Peter Morandi was the first, and then we started getting more people coming on explaining things.
Well,
doesn't hurt.
They're afraid of the questions that we may ask. That's the problem since the town manager came on.
Peter Morandi wasn't, and David Lane wasn't, and the library director wasn't. So they're not afraid of you, Mark.
No, nobody's afraid of me, except they're afraid of the questions that we may ask. So let's move on. And John, I think your screen went dead again.
Who, so my screen?
Yes.
Oh, well.
So
people can hear me. They don't. Hey, people can hear me. They don't have to see me.
Okay? All right. So you get on. The next story that I have here is I'm trying to keep this into a Christmas spirit, and we have done this in the past, and we have done this 2 weeks ago. But I think we have to refresh everybody's memories because this is the season of Christmas. This is the birth of Christ, and our churches are basically locked up. You have to make an appointment to go to Mass now. It's getting ridiculous. But as of December 6th, we were looking forward to celebrating St. Nicholas, delivering gifts to good children. On that day, we separate the commercial from the religious celebration of Christmas. That was the old tradition in the old country and in Holland and England. But now we have Santa Claus coming on December 24th. We shall continue the old-fashioned tradition of having a meatless supper like we have in Poland, with an extra plate for stronger, has no other place to celebrate the birth.
It was me. I'm trying to get a hold of your wife to come and fix the screen.
Well, I don't know where she is.
Can I yell out, or would that take away from this show?
I don't know.
I'll yell out. Ellie! Yeah? Okay.
There she goes. Now she'll fix it.
Add some authenticity to the show.
All right. So
what we talking.
Have is if we can show the Santa Claus
I'm blind again.
shot.
I don't know.
I think that'll be.
But you can hear me.
David, can you hear me? Well, we have some technical. There we go. Here's Santa Claus. This is the St. Nicholas version of Santa Claus, basically in Europe. St. Nicholas was a saint from way back in the 200s. And the bishop's hat and the beard are all traditional dress for the children in the European and England surroundings. Now, Santa Claus has had many, many different names. Western Christian culture originating is a legendary figure. And on Christmas Eve, or during the early morning hours of Christmas Day, December 25th, Santa Claus comes around, and he has many different names. St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, the Dutch figure of Sinterklaas, Germanic god Woden, Yule, and led by the wild hunt of ghostly procession through the sky. So this is tradition that has been around for many, many, many years. Santa Claus is generally depicted as a portly, jolly white bearded man, sometimes with spectacles, wearing a red coat with white fur collar and cuffs. Now, David, if we can show the next picture of Santa Claus. This is the modern version, and this has been copied by many, many nations and cultures. And this is old Santa Claus. So the one thing that I had on this version of Santa Claus was that we have attended many different children's functions or concerts, and Santa Claus is dressed in his red and white suit and brings on presents for the children, and they are so well behaved. But one story that I have here in front of me is there's a letter that was written. I am 8 years old. Some of my little friends say there is no Santa Claus. Papa says if you see it in the sun, it's so. Please tell me the truth. Is there Santa Claus? This is a letter from an 8-year-old Virginia Hanlon. Now, the reply from the newspaper is very, very interesting. Virginia, your little friends are wrong. They have been affected by the skepticism of a skeptical age. They do not believe except they see. They think that nothing can be which is not comprehensible by their little minds. All minds, Virginia, whether they be men's or children's, are little. In this great universe of ours, man is a mere insect, an ant, in his intellect as compared with the boundless world about him, as measured by the intelligence capable in grasping the whole of truth and knowledge. Yes, Virginia, there is Santa Claus. We exist as certainly as love and generosity and devotion exist. And you know that they abound and give to your life its highest beauty and joy. Alas, how dreary would it be, the world, if there were no Santa Claus? It would be as dreary as if there were no Virginias. There would be no childlike faith then, no poetry, no romance, no make tolerable this existence. We should have no enjoyment except in sense and sight. The external light in which childhood fills the world would be extinguished. Not believe in Santa Claus, you might as well not believe in fairies. You might get your papa to hire men to watch in the chimneys of Christmas Eve to catch Santa Claus. But he's never able to be seen except on certain nights delivering presents. You tear apart the baby's rattle and see what makes the noise inside, but there is a veil covering the unseen world, which not the strongest man, not even the united strength of all the strongest men and ever lived could tear apart. Only fate, poetry, love, romance can push aside that curtain and view the picture of super, supermal beauty and glory beyond. Is it all real? Ah, Virginia, in all this world, there's nothing else real and abiding. No Santa Claus, thank God. He lives and lives forever. 1,000 years from now, Virginia, nay, 10 times, 10,000 years from now, he will continue to make glad the heart of childhood. This is the belief in the Santa Claus that well, there's fantasy, and that's where we need to revert back to our childhood. So, what I like to just give you a little background of where I come from, St. Nicholas in Poland. That was a terrifying experience on Christmas, on the 6th of December, because St. Nicholas used to come up the stairs and ring his bell and be dressed in his bishop clothes, and he would have questions for you. Have you been good? Have you behaved? And he would look at the parents and sort of wink at them. And we would sit there, all three of us boys at the time would sit there and be shivering from the experience because he was real. So, and he did bring coal one year, but other years he was very generous. And at that time in the old country, and I'm going back to being 12 years old, 7 years old, we used to get gifts like apple or an orange for Christmas gift. We used to hang apples on the Christmas tree. We used to have real candles that used to light up for about 15, 20 minutes because that's as long as they would burn before the house burned down. So it was an experience. And I think, we need to refurbish that memory because it is so important to believe in something. John? You look stunned.
I'm just coal in your stocking. Okay. And what, December 6th, was that what happened in Poland? Christmas
That's
was
St.
December
Nicholas
6th?
Day. That's when the commercial side was. And on Christmas Eve, we never exchanged gifts. That was the religious side.
Oh, because one year we always used to open our presents on December 25th. But one year we decided to persuade our parents to let's open the gifts December 24th. Right? Worst thing we ever did because we opened our presents and now it's the next day. And we're like, okay, now what?
What's next?
So we never did that again about opening them on the 24th. So, and like I mentioned maybe before, December 24th, I lived in a tiny neighborhood in Salem, and I would start at 4 p.m. in the afternoon and go to 2 in the morning, just going all around the neighborhood. Right?
Well, that's when everybody has their Vigilia, which is the supper before on Christmas Eve, and it's usually in Poland it was meatless. So we had fish, we had kluski, which is
what's that?
Kluski is like linguine, but it's smaller, and you have that with cheese and fruit. That was cooked. And you also have the Polish poppy seed, roll, which is similar to what I showed you earlier. This one is with pear, filling, but we make that with poppy seed filling. and it's with almond extract, and it's got all kinds of delicious things. And then we have, and I'll pronounce it, but it's Schledge, which means herring, on because it's a fish, meal. We had vegetables. We had no kielbasa, no meat products. You had that after midnight because then it was permissible. So everybody after midnight mass went home and had a little bit of kielbasa and ham or something like that. So
Well, that shows you on midnight mass. I was an altar boy between the ages of 10 and 14, and I got to serve midnight mass when I was 13. And 7 or 8 years later, me and my pals went to midnight mass, and we weren't in the greatest of states. Let's put it that way for midnight mass. Like, what a difference! I'm in the pew thinking, "Wow, 7 years earlier, you were right up there, all nicey dicey, and now you're like half in the loop going to midnight mass."
Did the nuns try to send you to priest school?
No, I didn't go to Catholic school. They didn't have as many nuns teaching Sunday school in the starting really in the late 60s, early 70s, not like earlier in time. So, but it was just a culture shock to go from, going like this when you were 13 to like going like this when you were 20 going to mass. And the priest kept on giving us dirty looks. And half of us were former altar boys.
Well, the only thing I remember as an altar boy was that we used to have a little bit of wine before the mass and water it down so the priest knew exactly how much wine was in the bottle.
We never watered it down.
No? All right, John, what I'm going to do is we're not going to go into this what happened to Danvers article that I'm writing. I will send that to the papers, maybe, if they accept it, after the first of the year, because I think it's more directed at what's going on in our town. And our community has always been responsive to the needs of all our residents. But during this time of our current controlling rules and guidance, our leaders overreacted. That's the beginning of it. And I will skip this one, but we'll go into the recent dictates.
Can I ask one question to you?
Yes.
I never really asked this to you before. People won't believe me, but I don't care. I don't lie. You always try to go to the newspapers, which is the way it was in the old days, right? And they basically controlled everything. And now you got other formats you can go on. Like, as much as I'm not a fan of President Trump's, at least he goes on Twitter, if it isn't a lie, which it usually is, and he can bring his own views without a reporter saying, well, we didn't have room to put it in, or something like that, which we've all heard this over the years. Well, we didn't have room to do this. We didn't have room to do that. And now the paper is paper thin, wafer thin. And yeah, you don't have room anymore. You're right. Not like so why don't you do a Facebook page, or why don't you do something online that you can reach people? Like, there's different types of Danvers pages. They say they don't want political stuff on it, but there's always political stuff on it. But you can have your own page and say something like, something about just Danvers. You can talk about Danvers politics, but make your opinion based on fact, which a lot of times you don't do. And neither does your pal Trump.
That's beside the point, John. But the thing is that I have decided not to bother with Facebook, not to bother with Twitter, because those things are being now First Amendment rights are being jeopardized in there because Facebook is trying to curtail the input into your own articles. So this is our vehicle for getting messages out to our cable viewers. And
But the
thing
bottom
is,
line is, this show does, okay? But a lot of times, we've had discussions, you and I, over the years, where you took the courtesy and respect to go to the newspapers, and half the time they don't print your stuff.
right.
And they could edit it, or they could say to you, Mark, this isn't true. This has to go on. They could talk to you
But that's
if they
not their
wanted to.
job. That's not their job.
It is
John.
their job.
The
If I bought it,
First Amendment gives you the right to put together whatever you feel is correct.
no, that's
Now,
wrong.
the stuff that you get on Facebook and Twitter and the newspapers is twisted. So maybe this is twisted a little bit too, but at least it's my opportunity and your opportunity to express our views to the viewers that we have on cable. And this is meant to be for the Danvers residents by Danvers residents. Now, the newspapers have been cutting back on anything about community news, and we have very little. And they admit it because they depend on advertising and the fantastic stories that they print about accidents and blood. So that's part of the problem. But
So wait a minute. Why can't this show be part of community news? You can announce things going on that the newspapers used to do, because they used to have a great community news section, and where they put on February 10th in Danvers, blah 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 blah, in Salem, blah 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 blah, in Beverly, da 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 da. And I don't know why you can't do the same thing that on like DCAT will put down different events happening. And you could do the same thing. You could piggyback on the DCAT, putting down Santa's coming in, on December 5th to the square with the tree lighting. Okay, I mean, most people will know, but they also would read about a newspaper, which the circulation is going down, down, down. You could fill that void.
well, this is what we're attempting to do is fill the void for the stories that they don't publish or they don't advertise on DCAT. See, this is the in-depth reporting of when we actually listen to the Board of Selectmen or to the town manager or to the governor. Now, recent governor dictates actions, town management falling in line with these rules. These rules are, again, guidance, but now carry a threat of fines. What new COVID rules are we inventing now? Yeah, we're inventing now a new strain of the virus in England. So we're going to be locked up in our living rooms again for the next year. And that's the problem that I'm getting at. Christmas.
Yeah, but what you're seeing is a Trump clone in Britain decided a month ago to do a shutdown. Okay? Of all people, Boris did it. Okay? And what's going to happen after Christmas, because they're starting to prepare people for this, I think we're gonna be following England's example. They don't want to admit it right now, but they're slowly working it in the system that we may have to do this, we may have to do that, and they're going to use England and other countries as an example. And I'm always going to regret that we didn't follow New Zealand's example right away when everything started blowing up in March. And New Zealand basically not as bad as other countries. If you want to disagree with me, go ahead, but you're eventually going to see a shutdown. I say they announce it on a Friday night between Christmas and January 5th. Let's see how close I come on that one. but they make it on a Friday. So that's a news dump.
Well, what gives them the right to do that? They have no
contain the
right. They have
spread.
no scientific background. So,
Look, Mark, you know what? Research New Zealand sometime how they did everything and
Yeah.
what their rate is now, and you would be surprised if we had done the same thing,
okay,
but they won't.
let's move on. We have 10 minutes left. The last story, or the final story that I have here is that the state and federal elections continues.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Why?
The elections
Why are you-
continue. They are still in court being vetted.
Okay, I got a question for you. 4 years ago, Trump wins 306 to 232.
Yeah.
On Thursday, Obama had him in the office to start the transition. Biden wins by the same amount, and there's been still over a month of court challenges, of it's rigged, and all these lies. Barr saying there's nothing to it.
Well, hold on, John. You are the spreader of some of the lies. Because what you're assuming is what you're hearing on the news media is correct.
Hey, what am I lying about?
We don't know that.
What am I lying about? I'm going to hear this one. What am I lying about?
Well, the election is not complete yet.
It is.
No, it's
Electoral
not.
College already voted.
No, it's
You're
not.
thinking of January 6th.
January
January
6th is the final verdict, right? And then if it happens, it happens. But right now, it's still contended.
What
And
if
the problem-
Democrats did this to Trump 4 years ago? What would you do? What would you have said?
Same thing.
If Democrats did this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we
And
know
they
that
did.
2016 was
And they
rigged.
did in the past.
That was
So,
rigged. Trump even said it was
David,
rigged.
if you can throw on the last, they call it lobbying. And then
Here we go.
Yeah, this is it. This is the one, John. And the
Oh.
thing is, in America, they call it lobbying. Everywhere else in the world, they call it bribery and corruption. So, in this respect, in regard to the election, in regard to what's going on in the country, in the federal side, we are lobbying on all sides. And what we're calling it is lobbying. And like it says here, everywhere else in the world, they call it bribery and corruption. And that's exactly what happened with this bill that just got passed last night. It is bribery of the population to keep them quiet. All of our government has been bought and sold many times over. The cost and effort to get elected to more than a local town office takes thousands or even millions of dollars in contributions. Then the lobbying begins, and the candidates with goodwill get caught up into providing favors. So the thing is that we have to be very careful of what's going on. The president count is ongoing. And I don't know if you believe it or not, but they're going to go until January 6th.
The bottom line is all the states have certified it, who the winners were. And I don't know why you keep on hopping on this story that has no legs to it.
Well, we'll see January 6th. Our next show is on January 7th. And what we'll see is the final verdict on January 6th. Now, I have just a couple of questions on here, and I have you final comments in regard to Christmas. And what I like to do is give you an opportunity to express your, version of what is Christmas really mean to you, and what do we wish for in our next year's, agenda.
I'm first on this.
Yes.
Okay, this is what I hope for. Goodbye, virus. Locally, I hope that town government opens up government more. And what I mean by that is when I was in the hospital in May, June for my kidney transplant, I brought a couple of books with me. One of them was the town meeting handbook,
Yep.
which severely needs to be revised. Let's put it that way. And I'm not giving away my hand because there's some suggestions I have. And if I went before the Board of Selectmen, they would listen to me politely and respectfully and not do anything about it. And some might say I'm being cynical like Mark Zubrick. No, I'm not. I'm being honest with them. We've gone before the Board of Selectmen on a few things. And we've been told in the past, well, the Board of Selectmen has no authority, which they do on some things that we came. And I even tried to say, well, this board did this, and this board did this and that, and I was basically shut out. And no, this board does not have the authority. And that was a lie. Or they were ignorant. Or whatever you want to say. So my wish is a little more open government and a little more changing the rules to make it more open for everybody. And I guess that's all for now. I'm sure if I run into a selectman or select woman, they're going to say, what are you talking about? I'll just tell them, you read the town meeting handbook and you tell me if everything is copacetic with that handbook. And right now, you know what people are doing? If they're watching this live, they're going to get the handbook right now. What's civilian talking about? Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, that takes power away from the legislative body, which is us, town meeting members. But then they'll ignore it. Because notice where they sit at meetings. It's when they go back to the Toomey room, they sit way up high. Okay? They don't do that. In other cities and towns, they're on the same level. And they'll say, well, we're at the Holt Richmond now. We're on the level. No, when you eventually go back to the Toomey room, you're up high looking down at us.
That's right. And then that's a symbolic gesture that they perform.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Thank you, John. That was very good.
And now you get the last 3 minutes, of course, and I'm sure I'm going to hear some dribble-drabble from you, but I'll listen respectfully.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you'd be quiet for a second. Now, what I like to do is I want to thank all of our viewers
2 minutes, Mark.
For participating in this program, because I've heard many responses at the grocery store, mostly at the town hall or in the square. But I believe that we need to congratulate ourselves for being as safe as we have been. We have personal responsibility included in this COVID crisis that's been man-created and is being exhaustive to our population. But most of all, what I like to do is wish everyone in this town and this community, even the selectmen and the town manager, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you guys back in January, on January 7th. And we will start beating the drum again, because this needs to continue. David, can you put on the last slide? And this is my symbolic version of what's going on in our town. Town hall is somewhat open. Selectmen are hiding in their bunkers. Lack of leadership and direction to the community. The town management has only vengeance to residents that mean well. Settled comfortably in their bunkers, protected by the governor's actions. When will this dictatorship stop? And that front door is really locked. So I want to thank